Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Moss, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Hope that you're having an excellent Wednesday. I have to say I'm having a great Wednesday. It's been busy, and so has the world been busy. We're talking about presidents going over to the Middle East. We're talking about police verdicts coming down the way. We're talking about the price of eggs coming down finally, even though they're still high. All these things congeal sometimes, and you have to say, okay, what today is important? Our topic today is black on black crime in Memphis. And this is a parenthetical to talk about the recent jury verdict on 5 officers. Well, 3 officers, 2 had pled guilty, taking plea deals, whatever. But the last remaining 3 were found not guilty of second-degree murder. And these are police officers. Now, if you have any affinity for justice, humanity, to right to live, the right to pursue joy, happiness, this thing was an affront. Now, let me be very careful as I get into this. These were 5 black police officers who assaulted 1 black man who wound up dying from complications of head injuries. Listen to me, complications of head injuries. 5 black men on 1 black man who dies 3 days later of his injuries. Now, not clearly, I don't even put that out there. It's easy to say that while they were assaulting this man, they did not think that the end result would be that he died. Well, he did. Allah is the best of planners. I don't say anything other than that. It is decreed, if you will. But the thing we have to talk about is the environment. When I say the environment, I'm talking about what has become of the black community in the context of what are we producing in terms of intelligence, in terms of intellect, that bodes the question, what's fair? What's justice? What's love? What's respect? What's honor? What's dignity? When I watched the video, and I was very, I tore it when I watching the video because it's an emotional response. And I didn't want to give you an emotional response while we were talking today. I wanted to be, in some regards, part of my presence, didactic talking about this particular thing because we need to be talked to. I need somebody to talk to me about what I saw in this video, what transpired in the courtroom, what has transpired in our community. When you talk about these 5 black men beating up 1 black man, and these are sworn officers of the law. These are not guys coming out of some pool hall. This is not a rap concert. This is not an act of aggression. This is not gangs. These are people who are sworn to uphold justice with badges, with oaths, with commitments to community service, and they violated that commitment. When I watched the video, they violated the commitment. The thing that was even worse was to sit and watch them lie about what they had done. To say that this man had reached for their gun, that he had swung on them. No. He came to a stop. They pulled him out of his car. They were aggressive towards him. They were really trying to beat him up. He ran away. And that was the provocation, if you will, to exert this physical beating on him that ultimately took his life. Van Johnson of CNN, a contributor, Van Johnson, talked about this whole police scenario and the brutality of this beating. And he said that while these are black officers, these are black victims, he said that the root of it is, he said, it's still spurned by racism. Now, Van Johnson is a very intelligent man, and I'm going to tell you why. Because he talked about the honesty that we're not talking about in our black communities. That, for lack of a better word, we're very good about hoisting our emotions and protesting when it seems like it's a white person that does something to a black person. But you know what? That's the anomaly. That's the anomaly. We don't talk about the amount of crime, the amount of disrespect, the amount of criminality that we do towards one another. And only one of the reasons we want to talk about it is because we don't want to talk about it. You know why? Because snitches get stitches. We got to stop that. We have evolved a culture now that will not check itself. It's no wonder that in the last election, a lot of people identified with the ruthlessness, the quote unquote bravado, the gangster style of our president, because they felt like if he can get away with it, I can get away with it. Now, let's be clear. This was January 7th, 2023. Another thing to say that why does it take so long for this thing to come to justice for a videotape that's clear? A videotape, when it was viewed by people in Memphis, they protested. In fact, we had protests around the country. But even these protests, even the George Floyd murders, have not produced anything. They still have not been able to get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed anywhere. Biden promised to get it done. It's not done. Trump's not bringing it up. Okay. Is it going to be the will of the people? Most likely it will be the will of the people. But tonight, I want to talk about this thing about black on black crime. You know why? Because we don't talk about it. There's a thought. One of my mentors said, if you want to know about your community, look at the condition of the women. I've been black a long time. I've been around black women all my life. They're brilliant, vibrant, intellectual, smart, ambitious, faithful, creative, but still they're undervalued. In this space, they're undervalued. They take a beating every day they walk out of their houses. You know, the one is the bigger beating, which is white supremacy. That's not, and then the other one is, you know, a patriarchal society, that the man has some type of God-given directive to suppress the women. I'm not wrong, people. I'm not wrong, because the environment always informs us. The universe always informs us. We have a president who's president again, but it was a tape inside edition or whatever it is where he talked about grotesquely how you can handle women. And somehow, some way, he talked about it's locker room chatter. And it passed. Why did it pass? You know why? Because he understood the culture of which he was dealing. I want to say something that's really, really important. I watch interviews. I watch podcasts. Some of these podcasts are really, really good. Some of my friends do these podcasts. Some of the real positive ones and some of the bad. Some of the positive, some are really, really bad, but they're really, really positive. They're bad, but they're really, really popular. That's what I wanted to say. There is an unleashing of the word nigger. Nigger is used as a verb, adjective, noun, dangling participle. There is absolutely no filter how people use that word. Clearly, within our community, something is awry. Something is awry. We're going to talk about that when we come back here on the Shout Out Show. Don't go anywhere. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's roll. All right, we're back. I want to give a shout out to one of our shout out family members, Sister Ree. She's in Alabama. She lost her grandmother, man. Allah increase her and give her space in the grave for her good deeds. Ree, we love you. Hope everything is moving along purposely, and family and friends are there to grieve her and honor grandma. Okay. Want to give a shout out to my main man, Altaf Rashid. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullah barakatuh. Our dear brother, one of our day ones. We call him Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, tuning in from Toronto. We love you, brother. Thank you so much for being here. Also, want to give a shout out to my brother, JT. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullah barakatuh. Got a package to you on the way. I think you're going to love it. Thank you so much for joining us, dear brother. Let me jump over to Instagram quickly. We got Ja M33L or 1. Thank you so much for joining us. Dawood Hadier, Samir Abosa, Serenity with Allah. I like that name. Permissible Laughter. Shout out Satana Whitfield. Cousin Mimi 412. Thank you so much. Balian joined us. Thank you so much. Also want to give a shout out, of course, to Sister Satana, our executive producer here on the Shout Out Show, who makes these things run smoothly and consistently. We're blessed to have her. Let me get to the crux of this thing. Because this space that you're seeing now with this particular trial, it bodes heavy on my heart because this has become a pattern. You know, I just realized why I don't listen to a lot of rap music these days. One is degradation of women. Two is the amount of drug use. Three is the glorification of wealth when you don't have it. If you do have it, that's your thing. Most of the time when you do have money, you want to keep your money, so you don't really talk about it. But the glorification of money and the idea that money can change your life, money can solve things. Forget everything I just said, that money can solve things. It can get you the woman you want, the house you want, the car you want, the life you want. And it has nothing to do with the realities of hard work. Hard work, sacrifice, dedication, and understanding that the world is not about you and your goals. That everybody else is walking around with goals too. And part of it is we have to be humble enough to understand it. I'm not saying don't be great, but don't think you can be great at the same time of making sure somebody else is denied their greatness. That's a problem. A subject, black on black crime in Memphis. You know, JT's on the show. We had a conversation Sunday. We have an hour plus phone call every Sunday. And we were talking about one of the schools down there. And we were speaking about one of the HBCUs that have been taken over. They're being run through, you know, the people don't want the school is essentially what it is, that withholding money, things like that. And he said something about, you know, to an extent, I'm paraphrasing, bastardizing this a little bit. JT, correct me if you want to. And it was really about the power of our people, the will of our own people to help ourselves. And in that, he had a valid point about, is hope enough? Is hope enough? Do we have the will, the Constitution to go out here later on line and say, these are the things that are wrong, address them wherever the chips fall, they will fall where they may, but we have to be aggressive in what we want. What is interesting is with this verdict, there wasn't a lot of uproar. People weren't out of their seats and out of their hearts like they were with George Floyd, because, you know, George Floyd had a certain level of criminality, had race to it. But anybody knows statistics, crime statistics, the fact of the matter is the majority of white people were killed by white people. The majority of black people were killed by black people, Latino, and on and on and on and on and on. Here's my point. And I'm trying to make it really, really succinct. My point is we have a problem in our community that is pervasive. That somehow white supremacy, when it's really, really effective, we get to the point where we hate ourselves. We hate people who look at us. You know, Malcolm had the great speech, you know, who is it that taught you to hate yourself? Your eyes, your lips. This is valid here in 2025. Rethinking the fact that in the 50s, in the 60s, the question was there. And unfortunately, here we are in 2025, we have not effectively answered it. We've had milestones. We've had black judges. We had a black president. But this is my point. Even those things have not helped us address this space of self-hate. Now, anybody knows when you start talking about self-hate, the other side of it, people think it's self-love. That's a little bit further. The other side of it is self-awareness. I have to recognize something in myself that's deficient, that's broken, that's not functioning. As I look out at the world and I have the world through this particular prism, I have to say these additives, these problems, for lack of a better word, skew how I look at my brother, skew how I look at my sister. Look at education. Look at education. Satana has degrees. JT has degrees. I have degrees. I got a whole lot of people who have degrees. You know what it was when you were coming up in school and you wanted to go to college? Oh, he think he all that. She thinks she all that. They want to be white. I didn't want to be white. Just like JT, Satana, and my mom. I didn't want to be white. I want to be educated. I wanted to be competitive. I know the difference when you go to a job. You'll get turned down if you don't meet the guidelines. The guidelines say must have 4 years of college, 4-year college degree. I can't even get into a conversation if I'm sitting here going, oh, yeah, they're trying to be white. No, I'm trying to be competitive. I'm trying to be strategic. And in that space, we've lost ourselves. When I listen to the music is not strategic. It's not very creative. You know, there's been some wellspring of some folks. I'll give Kendrick Lamar some space, but even Kendrick Lamar in one of my favorite songs. All right, you know, again, pepper with the word. You know what the word is? Pepper with the word. And I begin to say, if he took the N word out of it, would that song be as popular? And the question is, I'm going to answer that question, yes. Yes. But it should not, in my opinion, I'm like, it should not be the rally cry, so that when you go out in the street, people play the songs, it's somehow demeaned a little bit because, you know, this got to be a nigga, that got to be a nigga. I'm like, that's not where we come from. We used to fight, brothers and sisters, when people call us the N-word. Hell, we used to fight when people call us black. Remember that, Mom?
Yeah.
Colored, black. We used to get easy. But we used to get upset on these things. And now there's a passive thing that what happened to our music whereby number one hits, hear me now, number one hits that garner tons of spins, tons of streams, have some of the most graphic language in it. And it's celebrated. Not only is it celebrated, it's commoditized. It's commercialized. It is a mainstream monster that we can't even pull back anymore. You can't find a rapper who uses this word and say, hey, let's take the word out. If that rapper believes that this song needs it to go gold, to go platinum, it's in one ear and out the other. Thus, everybody knows rap these days comes from the street. In the city of Memphis, they had a young guy, young rapper. Satana, you remember the young rapper named Young Dolph? That was his name. Young Dolph. Gunned down, I believe, in Memphis at a donut shop, getting some donuts for some kids. Young rapper. Saw the video of that too. Killed. What's the difference between Young Dolph and Tyree Nichols? What's the difference? I'm going to offer what I think is the difference. Agree or disagree? I think the difference is in 2025, people have taken a different valuation of what Black life means. What's his value? What's his importance? What's his relevance? I think a year ago, 2 years ago, we talked about if Black people are still relevant. And maybe I need to revisit that because the question is, yeah, but how relevant are we going to stay? Going back, it was the issue, what is the quality of Black life? I know how police rooms operate. One of my relatives was a policeman. And he told me something was interesting. He said, you know, of course, there's an emphasis for police. White cops are lock up Black people. He said, but there was an impetus for Black cops to lock up Black folk too. He said, because that was the business. You mean what I'm saying? He said that was the business. You know, if you start really thinking about it, you know, these Black cops are located where? In urban areas. They are there to suppress. They are there to police. Who's there to protect? You don't hear stories of Black cops on the Topeka, Kansas Police Department roughing up white folks. And if they are there, you might hear about them roughing up Black folks. You know, I only heard, and this is, I think it was in Minnesota, I could be wrong, about I think he was a Somali cop who accidentally shot a white woman. Now I have to go back and get the research. He shot a white woman, of course. He lost his job, things like that. I'm not sure he was brought up on charges. I have to get that information for you. I don't want to mislead you. But in this case, brothers and sisters, the Memphis Police Department fired all 5 of these guys. Fired them. Looked at the tape, made a rational decision, fired them. Here's the thing I want you to know. The Justice Department went after them and was unsuccessful. I've never seen this before. And I'm talking about a federal case. And they still have some federal charges left. I'm talking about unable to come up with any charge, that they were found innocent. Innocent. Wasn't a mistrial. They were found innocent. Not to say they won't be brought up on charges again, or maybe it's a retrial, but they were found innocent, brothers and sisters. And if you start to think about it, say, what is the gravitas that we've lost that these things happen? Well, there's a couple things that maybe we should all think about, and I'll get to them. Shout out, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother Eric. Good to see you. Hope everything's going all right in South Kakalaki. I got some people on. We got Najma Brown, Esquire. How you doing, sister? A very talented sister. If you need some legal help, look her up. Samaya Hassam, how are you? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Misa Live, that's my little sister. What's up? What's up, girl? Somebody got to pay for this. Yeah, that's my West Indian girl. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Islam Art Expo. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And Sakan 220. Good to have you on the show. Let me throw this out here. Let me throw this out here. My family member, who was a police officer, told me something, and I really, really rethought it in the last couple of days as the jury verdict was coming and when it was released. The Black community has a plague when it comes to law enforcement. White community doesn't have it. Latino community kind of, but the Black community has a plague. And here's what the plague is. We have a community mistrust that we believe that snitching is not being real. Snitching is not keeping it real. Snitching is giving up your blackness. Snitching is somehow showing that you are weak. Snitching is somehow saying that you don't believe in your brothers and sisters, the redemptive qualities of your brothers and sisters. Snitching is the quality and the character and the environment by which you can have this thing that happened in Memphis. Point blank, put a period beside it, put an exclamation point beside it. There's no comma. You know why? Because these 5 officers who are young, I don't think any of them were over 35, that these 5 officers sat there knowing that wasn't nobody going to tell. Corroborating stories and lies that didn't match up with the video on their vest or the video of the stoplight they wasn't a stoplight, I'm sorry, but it was another camera that showed them beating and pummeling this person. And of course, forensics got it together and they took the camera that was blocked off and they took the sound from the camera and the video from the other camera, put it together, and it told me everything I had to see. That somehow these policemen believe that they can do this with impunity. In the law, in the legal profession, they call this the blue line. But in this case, it's a little bit more than the blue line. It's the whole idea of snitches get stitches. So that 5 men who did this dastardly deed looked at one another and said, none of us are going to say anything, because if someone says anything, you're going to get the same thing that this person got right here. Probably even worse. So I started thinking about this. This culture, this snitch culture has allowed for so many things to go wrong. High levels of criminality in the Black community, weirdness in terms of self-betterment, a religious identity, trying to express yourself in excellence in school, in art, in sports. Okay, they take sports, but in business, the idea that we don't support our own businesses, it's the weirdness, and just personal things that women have been abused and told don't say anything. Don't get them in trouble, or don't get her in trouble. The police come, I ain't seen nothing, I don't know nothing. You were right there. And it just hit me when I was watching this that these guys were beating this man, and what turned out beating this man to death. And they didn't believe anyone saw them. Anyone. Let me even be even more specific. They didn't even think God was watching them. That God at some point in time would say, I need to talk to you about this video. And when you start thinking about that, the whole idea of impunity is a scary thought. It is demonic. This is the thing that Shaitan even looks at and goes, I can't take responsibility for that. And moving forward, these men, they may be brought up on other charges, but the damage is done. We've watched video of this thing for the last 2 years. The last 2 years. I even think it's strategic that it took 2 years for them to come to a verdict, because they arrest you right away, and then you have to go through a law process of a year, 2 years. My point will be taken, it may be taken well, and you can agree to disagree. I'm just saying, the law rewards complacency. The law rewards the fact that we are not diligent, that somehow, some way, justice is not denied, justice delayed to the point where it's delayed so much. If it's denied, it just looks like it's delayed. Removing the faith out of the system, removing the belief, or as my brother JT said, hope. What is hope these days when you see things like this? Almost 1992, I remember watching the Rodney King beating. It was a grainy video. And people say, oh, the officers, that's not officers. Somebody fixed the video, and we saw this man get beat over a period of time. And they say he wouldn't stay down. He was concussed. Stay down. You can't talk to somebody who's getting their brains beaten out. They're fearful of their life. It's fight, or it's flight or fight, however you want to say that. But understanding that, the thing was, a lot of people say, oh, well, that's isolated incident. And then there was a whole black community that said, damn it, that's what we've been telling y'all since the time we got here on the slave ships. This is the brutality. This is the cruelty. This is the inhumanity. He says, this is what you don't see. This is what we feel when we walk into these spaces, knowing that we're not wanted. And subtly, and I'll end on this, subtly, that absence of hope, that absence of trust that my brother JT talked about, somehow you start looking at the environment around you and the people around you, and that anxiety, that anger turns inward. And so we're not looking for hope. We're not looking for justice. We're just acting out. We want not justice, we want revenge. And we want revenge on not the people who caused the problems, but whoever's close to us. We hurt those. You heard the term before, hurt people hurt people. Well, hurt communities hurt communities. That's where it comes from. And then over and over and over again, the question is, where's hope? Now, I would like to give you a hopeful message about this. But I'm going to give you an honest message. I don't know where this thing goes. At 58, I'm almost on the cusp of, I can't talk to young people anymore. I'm Unc, I'm OG. Those are cute titles, but I'm not reaching them the way they need to be reached. That the mentorship is missing. That somehow idea of going to Howard or Harvard, it ain't the same as going to the club. It's not the same as going to get a platinum record. It ain't the same as going to get this bad girl or going to get a bad car or going to get a bag, period. Somehow, some way, this culture is failing all of us. That's my show for today. I'm Preacher Moss. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Keep the faith. Keep hope alive. See you next week.